Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Brand Architect podcast. It's me, Annie Alexander, and today again we're going to have another unscripted conversation, a live stream on Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you want to watch the live stream or drop your own comments and questions, make sure that you follow me on Facebook. You get connected with me on Facebook and follow me on LinkedIn. Other than that, I always post everything else on the audio thread as well. So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. Hello, today I'm talking to Kevan Smith. Welcome, Kevan.
Thank you, Annie.
How are you doing today?
I'm all right. It seems it's so strange. We've got so much more time these days, with the situation in the world, but at the same time, I seem to always be short on time. There's so much, I guess maybe a bit ambitious with what I'd like to fit in the day. So it's like tranquil, but at the same time, there's always so much going on, raging torrent.
Oh yeah, I think it happens with everyone. I think in the very beginning of the lockdown, what was happening was like everyone was just adjusting to the whole thing because it was crazy, right? And later on, we ended up with all these conferences becoming online, with all these online courses that became free, so we wanted to take them, and then we ended up overwhelming ourselves of having so many things to consume, and then we also wanted to produce some stuff on top of it, and yes, I mean, it feels like we're busier now than we were before, right?
That's yeah, exactly. And at the same time, I've just moved into my studio a month ago. So I just moved here in April, and it's been just a big part of the vision. For the past couple of years, I've been looking forward to having just a dedicated studio space, and I found the perfect space just before we went into lockdown. And so moving into the studio, it has so first of all getting it set up, but I've got like years, of a backlog of kind of creative, kind of ideas or just concepts that I've been wanting to, kind of set in motion. And for the first time, I both have, the space, and I have, time, opportunity, and so it's really been for me the timing. It was very, very difficult getting into the studio space, in the midst of social distancing. I had to do
Mm.
everything on my own, and
Oh
it
yeah.
was an extreme challenge. But it's also, yeah, it's just giving me just this great, kind of canvas to really both put my content out and to really establish, what I believe, is, the point of content, and yeah, the direction I would like to see, kind of entrepreneurs take in terms of finding their unique voice and message, and making a commitment to that authentic presence.
Okay, yeah. So for those of those who watching and don't know what you're doing, can you explain, like, I know that you're all around content and genuine content and artistic content, but what exactly are you doing?
I create video content primarily for corporate clients, and I also do commercial and corporate photography. And of course, obviously, and I do a bit of the creative projects on the side, the odd music video. I shoot weddings, as most kind of, content, or at least photographers and videographers do. In this age,
Mm.
we kind of have wear multiple hats. But primarily, I create corporate content, and for marketing, film, corporate interviews, and yeah, help people to put imagery with their brand identity.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So I think it's a big thing, right? I think content has become something that no one can avoid. Like, no matter whether people want to create content or don't want to create content, it's not a choice anymore, right? You just have to get into this because that's how things work at the moment. There is this thing about quantity versus quality, and then there is this thing about topics and formats and everything else. So very often when people just start to get into this space and want to sort of, figure things out, it's overwhelming in terms of the so many decisions that they have to make in their content marketing and content choices. So for someone who's just starting, like, what are the parameters, like how one chooses where to start, and how to decide whether you want to do videos or it's better to write a blog post instead? Like, what should you start from, and how do you choose that?
What I advise anyone who comes to me with who wants to grow their presence or their identity, I refer them to a strategist first and foremost. You really desperately need at least a business strategist, strategist. Having them
Mm-hmm.
in tandem is obviously going to be help you to be more effective. But before you create content, one needs to be extremely clear on what you stand for as a business, what's important to you, where you are looking to kind of situate yourself in relation to your competitors. There
Yeah,
needs to
positioning.
be
Mm-hmm.
a real crystal clear understanding of what your values are, what you're looking to achieve in the next number of years, what color schemes suit you, and then from there, once you actually understand what you stand for, what's important to you, what your vision is, who you're looking to service is really really key. Then once you understand that, then you can begin to create or craft messages or content that resonates with that group or with those different demographics. And identifying personas, identifying maybe 6 to 8 like kind of key or typical types of individual that you would create a message for, and learn to craft messages very specifically as opposed to trying to cast this broad net and having an umbrella that captures all of your demographics, because then you'll have a muddled message that won't resonate with anyone purely. So
Mm-hmm.
the very very first steps is to get your strategy down, get your strategy and understand how you want to present yourself. There was a point where I wore more corporate type of attire, just because I felt like I wanted or needed to fit in the kind of environment with the
Mm-hmm.
people that I was looking to have as clients or do business with. But my strategist, he just beat it into my head, and he was like, Kevin, stop, wearing, suits and ties when you create your content, because that's not you. Find your
Yeah.
authentic voice. Learn how to really be comfortable in your own skin, or in whatever that representation is that you're putting out into the world. It has to be authentic. It has to be truly you to the core. And so that's a big part of understanding your strategy and understanding who you are, and then finding your voice. Once you
So
actually
how was
find,
that process though? Like,
it took years.
how did you?
It
I
honestly,
mean, it's gonna be hard, right? Like, what's the journey from just
it took
starting,
years.
being confused? How was your experience with that? How did you find your voice?
Finding my voice really, that's a tricky question, because in fact, I have a few different voices. On LinkedIn, what resonates with the audience there is people really want to be entertained. By and large, they like to have a message, and so you want to sneak one, kind of one thought, one message in your content. And
Yeah.
one great tactic is to start opposite to how you will resolve that piece of content. And so if it's a peace loving, okay, let's all come together and on one accord, and understand one another. If that's going to be how you sum the piece of content up, then you want to start it off as if it's on discord or dissension or contrasting
Hmm.
views. And so that your content, for it to actually bring people in, it needs to have an arc to it. It needs to have some kind of evolution. And so you platform specific, every platform has its own native tone. And so for LinkedIn, one way that I find my comfort zone that also gets results is to create content that's slightly humorous, that does have some kind of cerebral, kind of context to it, but it doesn't
Hmm.
get bogged down in that. And so it can still be entertaining and engaging, and informative at the same time. And so really, I think it really helps to understand, or to really study the nuances of each platform, what resonates with your audience on that platform, and then you can find your voice that's in line with how that platform operates, or what's the native language on it. And so that's some of the foundation to finding your voice, but realize that it's going to be different on each platform.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually makes sense. So, although like platforms have different styles of communication, right? And because they have different type of audiences, but probably there is some kind of a core thing that stays the same because it's who you are, right? There are some fundamental things that are a foundation of the authenticity and values which you keep the same no matter which platform you are at, right? So how important it is to put your personality into content, how important it is to showcase what you stand for versus talk about your products and services.
I rarely, I very, very rarely talk about products or services, or what I offer, or what I can do for clients in my
Mm-hmm.
content. It's not why people tap into social media. If you have some kind of content on a landing page, or on your website, or in an email list that maybe your audience is subscribed to, then they're actually looking to really absorb your pitch, essentially. But when it comes to social media, I leave it. I don't. I'm not a salesy person. At the moment, I've just downloaded two new audiobooks, just to help me with my selling, because as a creative, as an artist, it's just not intuitive to me. And so I don't necessarily take it as law, but um, it's what builds a relationship with my audience, and people feel, I guess, in a sense, they can trust me because I'm not trying to sell them anything. I show up, I have fun, I speak my truth, or what I understand, to be true, through my
Mm-hmm.
content. It evolves. I try to be bare and honest, and not kind of assume this character, this flawless, kind of
Yeah.
like persona. I just try to just do my best to be me, but like, I've got high standards in terms of my content, in terms of the message that I look to deliver, and that's intrinsic through all the platforms, like you say. There's a certain level of quality, and a certain precision, and a certain like real commitment to communication, to clear and succinct communication, and that's across all platforms. And so those are the things that are consistent, that are always present in my content. But in terms of selling, I really like to let my work speak for itself, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of let people understand my expertise. But again, that's something that I'm growing and learning to present, to do a better job of. Today, I just went through, and I have a number of recommendations and referrals that I have in letter form. And so today was scanning them in, so that I can have that social proof, both on LinkedIn and on my website. And so there are a number of kind of tenets to selling that I'm not doing a great job with. But at the same time, it's a young business, and so.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So it's interesting. So what I'm doing these days is, although there are different pools from where I can get guests, these days I'm getting guests mainly based on who I noticed on LinkedIn, who is showcasing good quality content, and has an looks like has a deep knowledge in their expertise, right? So I'm not looking for influencers, gurus, and all those big names, right? And I'm doing it on purpose. And the reason why I'm doing it on LinkedIn is because there aren't many good quality content creators on LinkedIn, right? There aren't many content creators in general on LinkedIn, let alone good ones. So it's easier for me to sort of, spot and see the good ones, right? Why do you think is that? Like, why? I mean, we have this massive platform, we have so many people on there. We have loads of active users. But we don't have enough people who are creating good quality content, first of all. And second, we don't have enough people who are actually engaging in a thoughtful way. I'm not talking about awesome post, thanks for sharing, and all that stuff, which is not adding value to the conversation. I'm talking about like deep, meaningful, thoughtful comments, because what I've noticed is those people who are creating good content are the ones who are writing good comments. So it's the same people, nevertheless. It's the small pool. Why do you think we have this issue on the platform?
I actually did a video on this yesterday, which touched on the difference between two sectors, content creators and thought leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think oftentimes content creators, by nature, tend to be behind the camera. That's our comfort zone. Usually, I love filming and photographing, and
Yeah.
so it's taken me a while to both become adept and to find my voice and to feel comfortable in front of the camera. And so I think that's one of the kind of primary hurdles or obstacles. Today I posted a really nice photo that I took with my drone a couple of days ago from the countryside in West Sussex, and it's a stunning, beautiful, breathtaking photo.
Yeah, I saw
And I
that.
put
Yeah.
together, I put a the copy I put to it, was it's decent. My copy's all right. Uh, but it's not something that I would expect to get much engagement. And I personally don't care. I don't give a toss about engagement. Like I just want to put out like something that's real, that resonates to the very specific, audience that I'm communicating with. I don't
Mm-hmm.
create a generalized product. And so I'm not expecting, these droves of kind of sheep-minded people to,
Yeah.
uh, to, to resonate with it. It's not meant for a general, like audience of people who aren't into something pristine and refined. And so, yeah, who cares about engagement? Just be true and create something, brilliant. But so made this post, and yeah, I wouldn't expect to get a lot of engagement. It didn't get very much engagement, but it's not like some entertaining talking head saying something. That's or trying to do a song and dance, and it's just what people are geared for. People are not quite interested in introspection or like and so I think, yeah, that's one of the big, I guess, one of the things that makes content creators not really want to gravitate to the platform, because people don't appreciate any kind of artistic expression by and large.
Mm-hmm.
And they only really seem to respond. It's been drummed into their heads by influencer types and thought leaders
Yeah.
that good content is a person standing looking into the camera and talking for a minute and a half or 2 minutes on something that you'll forget, in 15 seconds, and that's what people have come to want to digest on the platform. And so for a content creator, it can be terribly uncreative. It lacks
Yeah.
creativity, that model.
I get it. Yeah.
And then you've got these thought leaders who are not they are looking to attract a very average audience. They want to pull as many people into their ecosystem with one bland message, and they dominate the space. And so it's to the detriment of the platform, in my opinion. LinkedIn really suffers from this kind of sheep-minded mentality. And then a third demographic is, someone who's an architect, or a builder, like someone who owns a cleaning service. They're not a content creator. They're not a thought leader. They're not quite sure why they're on LinkedIn, really.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as far as I can tell, those are three kind of core groups that are on LinkedIn. And the content creators, we tend to entertain one another, and marketing people. I think we're quite similar. And then on the other side, you've got thought leaders with his was kind of drivel a lot of times. Some of them are awesome. I got to like Shay Robottom, I think.
Yep.
She puts out great content while also looking to press her agenda. As a thought leader or a salesperson. And so
Yep.
I feel like she skates the line, and she
Yeah,
does so
she
brilliantly.
finds this right balance between
Yes. There are very
entertainment and
few.
knowledge. So it's a very fine line between the two. But and she found the gold middle and the right balance. I noticed you through the video that you made talking about engagement posts. So engagement posts are not something that are happening only on LinkedIn. I mean, on LinkedIn, it's a relatively new kind of activity. We've seen all those on all different platforms. Like we had them on Facebook, we had them on Instagram, we had them like pretty much everywhere. And we know how it works. It's basically tricking the algorithm and gaining traction uh, easier in order to have your post be viewed by more people, right? And I'm not part of a pod because I just feel that it's kind of it's hard to see the real engagement behind it, and it's hard to understand how far will your content go organically if you are part of the pod. But on the other hand, I do understand why some people use it, because the way the algorithm works at the moment, right? So that's why, like, I'm kind of, I understand both sides, and it's just about choice, right? The way the algorithm works at the moment is that even if you have amazing content, even if you have spent lots of time, it's a good quality content, you have a real message to share, and it's something that you feel is very important and you want more people to know about it, unless you have a certain number of comments within the first 1 hour or whatever. I mean, I don't know how exactly the algorithm works, but in a short period of time after posting the thing, unless you have that engagement in place, you probably will end up with that content being invisible, and like almost no one will see it, let alone engage with it, right? So by having that in place, people are just getting that little push in order later on to organically get more people engage with it without the pod, right? So I can understand why they are doing it. And I know you're very firm about how much damaging it is to the whole system. So would you like to share your opinions about that?
Well, first, again, engagement to me is not how I measure the success or failure of a piece of content, because again, I create a very precise, refined product for a very niche service, and so for a niche audience or a client, and so when I create content, I need it to connect with very specific individuals, because I don't want to attract a bunch of attention
Mm-hmm.
from sheep. I don't know how else to really say it. And so I think that it's important to understand why massive engagement is important to you, because if you're a content creator, and it's contrary, like, what does massive engagement on your post mean? It means something to a thought leader who's looking to sign up droves of people to their online content, to their online courses. And so there is a lure in having massive engagement on a post. As a content creator, I can work with a maximum of probably, maybe 6 clients a month, maybe 6 to 8 clients a month, and they need to be the right clients, and they need to be clients who are going to understand my pricing structure, so that they know the value of what I create for them, and so that what I create for them actually works for them, that they get a return on their investment. And so yesterday I made this piece of content talking about, again, talking about the difference between thought leaders and content creators. And basically, like you were saying, I understand both sides of the coin. And I'm not saying that thought leaders are bad, or that whole kind of sect is bad for using engagement pods. And to the contrary, I wish content creators would not be so antagonistic and kind of denouncing pods, because they have their place for their demographic. But so I made this post basically talking about the Go Giver by Bob Berg and John D. Mann. It's a fantastic book, and one
Yeah.
of the parts, or one of the principles for stratospheric success, it touches on. Let me think about that. Oh, to scale your income, or to increase the amount of money that you take in, then you need to have a broad impact on more people with a single action. And so this is thought leaders. They need to make one online course, and they need to have 10,000 people sign up for it. And so that's how they
Yeah.
scale their income. But that's not how content creation works. There's no way of creating something and then getting residuals in the same way. You can do stock, or you can license content to your clients, but there is no system like an online course unless you make an online course. So it's important for people who are thinking about pods, or who are creating content, to understand who they are and why they might potentially want massive engagement. Because as a content creator, if you're allured by the vanity metrics, then you're not really a content creator, you're an aspiring thought leader. And so you really
Mhm.
need to know who you are and what you're looking to deliver for your clients. I know who I am and what I'm looking to deliver. And that's because I had a strategy session, and I know what I love to do. And for me, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a way of, sustaining myself by doing something that I'm passionate about, that I'm also adept at. I'm a content
Okay.
creator, so that's that. And but anyways, on that post, so Bob Berg, the author of the book, he replied, to my post, and we struck up a dialogue, and then we connected, and then we were messaging backwards and forwards, and then a number of his connections then sent me connection requests. And
Mhm.
Bob Berg he's a really like influential person, and
Yes.
highly successful, and that's the kind of person you want to connect with. And then Richard Moore, I tagged him almost as a bit of a spoof. I tagged Richard, Shay, Quentin alums, and Jackie Hermes. I tagged those guys in the posts, because that was kind of tongue in cheek, like taking pot shots at them. And again, like, I think all four of those people are phenomenal. They work their asses off, and they're really, really, like, I look up to them, like all four of them. And
Mhm.
Richard, he's the only one of those four who I've met. I met him at a LinkedIn local about a year and a half ago, and dude,
Mhm.
he is sound. Richard is just cool, and he gives so much information. He gives so much back to the community, and yeah, we have that relationship. He's a good guy, and he actually he thanked me for tagging him in, and we had a bit of a dialogue. And then another of my recent clients, who is a Artie Palmer. She is a she's a marketing specialist. She does branding, and as hard as she's a branding specialist. And yeah, she's just awesome. Like, she has her online courses, and she is really well established.
Mhm.
And so the right people engaged with my post. The people I want to retain Artie as a client. Not just because she's referred business to me, and when you have that relationship built up, it's easier to scale your income based on your existing clients, as opposed to finding new clients. And so when you can further solidify the relationship with an existing client, you can connect with a thought leader like Richard. You can get the author, of this best-selling book, it sold 1 million copies. When he, like, chimes in on your post, joins your network, and then you message backwards and forwards. That's hugely successful, even though the engagement was like less than 30 likes, and maybe the same 30 or 40 comments. Paltry by some people's standards. For me, it's a home run. That's like, I couldn't ask for anything more out of a single
Yeah,
piece of content.
it's all about who is behind those likes and comments, right? If it's the right people that you are you want to build relationships with, and I think it's very important. Like, you mentioned the word relationship several times, and I think it's very, very important to understand that content creation is the way to build relationships with your audience, and relationships are not built in a day, and in a week. It's an ongoing process, right? And there is no shortcut for that. So there is a shortcut for vanity metrics. There is a shortcut for more eyeballs on your content and more people liking or commenting on your content. But that's not really a relationship, right? It's just clicks, which kind of may lead to something or may not. So what is that ingredients in the content that that helps build genuine connections with your audience?
I would say if it comes from a place where you're drawing on something that genuinely matters to you, and this was the post that I made today with a photo, was the difference between creating content and finding contentedness.
Mm,
And so which one is more challenging? Because if you are looking to find contentedness in content that's gotten lots of engagement and vanity metrics, but you haven't put your heart into that piece of content, then I feel like it's a paradox. I don't feel like you can find contentedness when your communication or your expression is
mm,
not in line with your core, with what really moves you or what's important to you. And so for me, I just think about what is real. Yeah, I think about what I actually love in the
mm,
world. I think about what I've experienced in terms of either on the platform of LinkedIn or networking. What challenges I've come across in terms of, like I said, like sales, needing to learn more about sales. Then that's an honest piece of content that I
yeah.
can write that says that we've all got a journey, we've all got growth to do, and it's not good enough simply by having a great product. You need to understand how to communicate how what you have to offer can solve your potential clients' problems, and that's something that I'm looking to develop. And that's a bit of my own personal journey. And so I've committed by reading, by downloading books X and Y. And I look forward to, touching base with you in 3 months to give you an update on how, kind of looking to fill that knowledge gap, how that's worked out for me. And so that's just it's honest, and people respond to honesty. Like,
Oh
surprise,
yeah.
surprise.
It's
And yeah,
it's
so
also
content is
transparent,
everywhere.
right? It's also
It's what
transparent, right? It's about transparency, and I think,
authenticity.
yeah, I just think, like, different people have different levels of how far they can go in terms of how transparent they can be and how open they are willing to be on social media, right? Because at the end of the day, it's actually putting you in a vulnerable situation, right? And there are so many people out there that you don't know that are going to judge you. I mean, I'm just talking about people who have difficulties putting themselves out there in the very beginning, right? All these objections that you are hearing from people is, I'm not good enough. I feel vulnerable. What if I get criticized, etc., etc., right? Because in the very beginning, like, I remember when I was 6 years ago, when I was launching my podcast, the very first episode, which was like a short, very like 3-minute thing, me recording about what the podcast will be about, right? It was purely audio. I wasn't doing videos before. And I was recording and deleting and re-recording and deleting and listening to it and hating the voice, and it wasn't good enough. I mean, I was in it for hours for 3-minute episodes, right? And then I spoke to a relatively experienced podcaster back then, and he told me, you know what, stop. Go listen to other podcasts' very first episodes, the podcasts that you absolutely admire. Go back and listen to their very first episode and see how terrible they all were in the very beginning, and then sit there, record the thing, and promise yourself you're not going to touch it. You just put it out there and then move on, because no one is going to listen to it after episode 10, 20, 30, etc. And that's what exactly I did. So it's I guess it's just about starting, and it's just about realizing that no one was good enough. I mean, because we the problem is, because many people lack transparency, we think about overnight success. We don't really see these people back then when they sucked, because many people are not really so open about it, right? So how transparent, I mean, one needs to be, according to you? Like, is there a limit, or you just like, how should people approach this?
First, my heart goes out to ladies, like the females. It's I can't imagine, the the pressure, the like the judgment. It's
Yeah.
really it's hard to speak on it, just because as a man, again, like I just got out of the shower, like I didn't do my hair. I just like I just threw on a t-shirt, like it doesn't have any mustard stains on it, and that's good enough. I didn't shave or nothing, like. And like for like a guy, like we can get away with that, and but girls, there's this ridiculous standard, and so I think it's really really difficult to say, um, in terms of your transparency. Like I don't really care what people think,
Yeah.
and then and it's like I'm just like in general, like I'm pretty straight up. I think a lot of that is kind of maybe cultural, kind of coming from a urban, like upbringing, in America. Kind of one of the sayings, that
Yeah.
we grow up with is keep it real, and that bravado, like kind of a hip hop culture and such, and so I find it like my sword and my shield is like the truth, and it's like as
Yeah.
long as you're honest and transparent, people who like they can't they like can't be like, ha, I got you, I caught you out, and it's like, no, you're not gonna catch me out, because I'm straight up, and so for me, like it's really, I like honesty is that's just like policy, and so it makes it so easy for me to create content, and I don't know. It starts getting into a little bit beyond, kind of being a creative. Like when you talk about finding yourself and learning
Yeah.
to value, who you are as an individual, and stand for what you believe in and what's important to you, regardless of what, like the status quo, or like what pop culture tells you, is cool or normal, and so like yeah, a lot of it really comes down to is being your own individual, person, and being happy with that person, and understanding that person, and like a strategist, helps you get kind of clarity on who you are and what you're about, and you accept that, and then you hold on to that, and you look to grow it, but you know what that core is, as long as it's coming from that core, then you should not really ever kind of feel inadequate or judged by being true to yourself. And
Hmm.
so, like, it is what it
Makes
is.
sense. No, totally makes sense. Okay, so if we have to wrap it up, like generally, if you're looking at content creation as part of your overall marketing strategy, um, like looking at it from that perspective, how much do you think, like, which are the parts that should be outsourced, but which are the parts that a person, like a small business owner, should totally own that and do it himself?
I would say at first it comes down to who is your target audience and what are they expecting. I think that you need to be able to maintain a professional tone in whatever medium you choose. So if that maybe you can get away with Twitter or with tweeting and not being kind of precise and uber professional, but beyond that, if you're not a very good writer, then you really need to connect with a copywriter or or content creator who understands your voice and your values. But I
Mm.
would say it really depends on what you are proficient at. And copywriting is really just like the backbone of all your content. Copywriting is what gives you your dialogue for your video content. It's obviously what goes along with any kind of image post that you put up on Instagram or LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
so you really need to be very honest with yourself about your level of copywriting, and especially if you are looking to connect with an exclusive or higher end market, then your copywriting needs to be on point. I think you almost always want to outsource your graphic design. You need your logo needs to be done by a professional. Your color palette needs to be chosen for you, or something that's in line with your brand, values or identity. And so you really need to outsource your graphic design. Once you get your logo and your color scheme down, then you can learn templates. You can go to Canva and you can start
Yeah.
creatively putting things together. But that framework needs to be done by a professional. It's gotten to a point now that websites, you can do your own website. It's not, the same, kind of business card that it was before.
Yeah.
You can manage your own Instagram. You can manage your own Facebook. You need ads. If you're going to invest in ads, definitely, definitely, definitely
Yeah.
get a professional to do your ads. Learn about SEO. If you're going to do your own keywords, for your website, you really need to put in the time. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, or you're wasting an opportunity in terms of your keywording and your SEO. But always, always go to professionals for your ad campaigns. And so I would say that you can probably get away with your copywriting if you're half decent in terms of communicating a message, and you can kind of create that arc of a story. Um, you can do your own images, but you can make your brand identity seem muddled if you don't put out nice, sharp, professional looking
Yeah.
images. So I would say that you probably want to invest in professional imagery, and then maybe interdisperse that in, with some of your own.
Hmm.
But you really
Yeah.
need to always kind of have an anchor that says professional and concise, that you can put with your branding, that says, like it's, sealed, like we're quality. And
Yeah.
so, mm,
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, there are so many moving parts, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. I mean, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation, and yeah, as you said, content creators and marketers are gonna entertain each other on the platform, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's been a pleasure, Annie. Thank you for having me on. Before I go, I just wanted to put out there that LinkedIn is the one platform that gets us revenue by subscriptions, by people signing up to their premium tiers, as opposed to ads like Facebook and Twitter. And so that kind of underscores like maybe why LinkedIn doesn't want to get rid of pods, or they have a slightly different approach. And so LinkedIn, it's good that creators have a space and that we can find new clients, but it's a different animal, or different kettle of fish altogether. But anyways, I've
Yeah,
rambled enough. Sorry for being chatty
absolutely.
Cathy, but
No, no
I'll end
worries, no
it.
worries. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye.
Take it. Bye bye.